Kurtop here, and these are 100 incredible cases when archaeology had to be rewritten. Are these finds really 300 million years old? From time to time, miners find strange artifacts in coal seams that appear to have been created by intelligent beings. This poses some awkward questions for science since the age of these rocks is estimated at 300 million years. How could objects that were clearly made by hand get there? After all, at that time, the Earth was inhabited only by giant insects and the first reptiles, and there was no talk of people, dinosaurs, or even advanced technologies. However, the finds continue to amaze us. In 1912, an iron pot was extracted from a coal seam in Oklahoma, and in 1851, a zinc and silver vase was discovered in Massachusetts, the rock of which is 534 million years old. A metal rod similar to a rack made of aluminum with an admixture of magnesium was found in Russia. Its origin is even more mysterious. Aluminum was discovered only in 1825, and the age of the coal in which it was found exceeds 300 million years. Scientists have found that the metal is saturated with carbon, which confirms its incredible age. But if so, who made it? Some believe that these finds are traces of a vanished civilization that existed long before us, but was wiped off the face of the planet by a global cataclysm. Others suggest that the objects could have been left by aliens or even time travelers. Skeptics, in turn, are sure that this is a hoax or dating error. There is also a theory that coal was formed not millions but only a few thousand years ago under the influence of deep gases and pressure. If so, then the artifacts may not be so ancient at all. 800-year-old mummy is someone's girlfriend. This creepy story took place in Peru. Like many others associated with ancient mummies and terrible rites, 26-year-old Julio Cesar Bermejo sleeps in the same bed with the mummy Juanita, which he inherited from his father. Juanita has lived in this house for over 30 years, but the main disappointment of an older women lover was waiting for him further. It was not Juanita, but the real Juan. Quite by chance, the police approached the guy to conduct a routine inspection of things. Julio worked as a courier, and in his refrigerator bag, he carried an ancient mummy with him, claiming that it was his girlfriend. He told the police that he loves her and cares for her, and also that she sleeps with him in the same bed. I probably won't say anything about the guy's mental health. Doctors will tell you about this after they conduct a medical examination. Until then, he will remain in custody. The guy claims that his father brought the mummy home 30 or 40 years ago because the museum did not accept it as a gift. According to the former courier, his family bought it for 2,000 Peruvian sols. At the time, a huge amount. Specialists in antiquities have already managed to draw the first conclusions on the mummy. The pre-Hispanic relic is a mummified adult male. He lived presumably in the eastern part of Puno, a region in the Peruvian Andes, about 1,300 kilometers southeast of Lima. The man was about 45 years old. The guy said that he just decided to meet with his friends and took the mummy with him because he wanted to show off the girl to his friends. It is difficult to add something to this story, so I propose to move on to the next find of archaeologists. Swamp people in Europe. Throughout Europe, archaeologists have found hundreds of mummified people in swamps. The first finds of this kind even scared archaeologists because the preservation of the deceased was amazing. However, later scientists were able to understand how the process of mummification takes place in the marshland. At the same time, the researchers realized that all the people buried in the swamps were victims of ritual murders. Scientists have studied more than 1,000 swamp people found throughout Europe. Fragments of skeletons and bones, skin, and soft tissues were studied in detail. Forensic experts found traces of cuts and stab wounds on all the remains. Wounds were not inflicted with the intent to quickly kill a person. All injuries were inflicted with a specific purpose. Animal bones and weapons were also found nearby. All this points to ritual killings and offerings. Ritual killings and burials in swamps date back to 5000 BC. At least, at the moment, these were the oldest finds. Archaeologists found the oldest swamp mummies in Scandinavia. The earliest ones date back to the Middle Ages, but they look more like an accident than a sacrifice. Such a mummification process is considered natural and the most accessible, so to speak. If a person falls into a swamp and drowns, then nature will do everything itself. And next, I will tell you about the mummy more usual in our understanding. Rare giant book. Here is one of 12 giant books from the 18th century written in Spanish. Its size is impressive, almost a meter in length. These books were created for religious ceremonies and contain detailed scripts for the services. Leather binding, wooden covers, pages made of tanned animal skin. All this made the book not only durable but also a symbol of the greatness of the church. Such manuscripts were intended for use in churches where priests and choirs could read the text from afar. That is why the letters are so large. Today, this rarity is kept in the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Scientists and restorers carefully study it, trying to preserve it in its original form. These books are a real window into the past, allowing you to see what liturgical texts looked like and what the attitude to writing was in the era of colonial Latin America. Ancient Bridge in England. In England, there is an amazing wooden bridge from the Neolithic period. It is almost 6,000 years old. It's a trail called the Sweet Track that cuts through swampy terrain in the Somerset Levels. It is named after Ray Sweet, who discovered it in 1970. The dating accuracy was determined by the dendrochronology method. Sweet Track was created as a shortcut through the swamp. It was actively used for 10 years, but then it was abandoned, possibly due to rising water levels. Items found along the trail include stone axes, arrows, the remains of a dish, parts of bows, bone hooks, and a fragment of a spoon. The road is about 1.8 kilometers long and connected two Neolithic settlements on opposite sides of the swamp. Today, the Sweet Track is considered to be the oldest known road in England. Surprisingly, the manufacturing technology of such wooden bridges has not changed much over the past millennia. This unique find allows you to learn more about the life of people in the Neolithic era and their methods of transportation. The oldest meteorite. Meet Erg-Chech 002. Not a simple meteorite, but a whole great-grandfather from space. It is already 4.6 billion years old. It was found in the Sahara Desert and holds the record for being the oldest volcanic rock on Earth. This is an andesitic chondrite, one of the first space inhabitants. Scientists from Australia decided to find out all its secrets. Understand how the planets were formed and what happened in the solar system at the dawn of its existence. But our old man has prepared a surprise. The isotope aluminum-26 was the main source of heat in the early evolution of the solar system. In addition, by its quantity, experts usually determine the age of meteorites. But it turned out that at the beginning of the existence of the solar system, this aluminum was distributed unevenly. So the old methods of determining age are no longer so accurate. This discovery changed the ideas of scientists. Now, to find out the age of the space inhabitant, we need a new approach. Gold torque. In the UK, an amateur with a metal detector discovered a 3,000-year-old gold torque. The ancient piece, found in a field by the River Stour in Essex, is the first such artifact to be recorded in the region. Torques are massive gold necklaces that symbolize the high status of their owner. The piece dates back to the Middle Bronze Age. Analysis has shown that the piece is 75% gold, 18% silver, and contains a small amount of copper. The 14.7 centimeters piece is made from a rectangular gold rod into which the craftsman cut 4 deep grooves and then twisted the metal, giving it a special shape. According to ancient Finn specialist Laurie Rogerson, the artifact looks as if it was made yesterday. Working with such a soft metal required a high level of skill, as twisting too hard could tear the gold. The discovery of 16 hands. Recently, archaeologists discovered something shocking in the city of Avaris: 16 human hands buried in 4 pits near the palace. And you know what's the strangest thing? All of these hands are right, and they all belong to fairly large people. These hands are traces of an ancient custom described in Egyptian texts. The soldiers cut off the right hand of the enemy and exchanged it for gold. By cutting off the right hand, the soldiers not only made it easier to count the defeated enemies, but also symbolically took away their strength. Who these hands belong to is a mystery. It could be the hands of the Egyptians or those with whom they fought. The Hyksos. Such a cruel custom existed among the Hyksos and the Egyptians. Who started first? No one knows, but the cruel treatment of captives in ancient Egypt was quite common. Yamashita's gold. One of the most fascinating and mysterious stories associated with World War II is the legend of Yamashita's gold. This story begins with Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita, who, according to numerous accounts, was able to amass vast treasures captured during Japanese military campaigns throughout Southeast Asia. Legends claim that at the end of the war, Foreseeing inevitable defeat, Yamashita and his subordinates hid these treasures in various places in the Philippines. Since then, Yamashita's gold has been the subject of numerous expeditions and searches, attracting treasure hunters, historians, and adventurers from all over the world. But no expedition has so far been able to find definitive evidence of the existence of these treasures. The legend of Yamashita's gold was surrounded by layers of myths and speculation. It is said that among the hidden wealth were not only gold and precious stones, but also artifacts of incredible historical and cultural value. According to one version, the Japanese command used a complex system of codes and maps to designate the locations of the treasures, many of which were lost or destroyed in the last days of the war. In attempts to unravel the mystery of Yamashita's gold, dozens of expeditions were undertaken, some of which ended in tragedies and even deaths. This highlights the dangers of treasure hunting and the difficulty of searching in the jungle and mountainous regions of the Philippines. The story of Yamashita's gold continues to inspire new generations of explorers. It reminds us that many secrets of the Second World War are still unrevealed. And who knows, maybe one day someone will be able to solve the mystery and discover the lost treasures. Tiny alien. Just 2 months after scientists in Peru exposed a hoax claiming 2 dolls were actually alien bodies, alien stories are resurfacing online. This time, a premature human fetus with an elongated skull found in Colombia is being linked to little green men and ancient races. However, skeptical scientists proved that the skeleton belongs to an unborn human fetus. The main reason why many people believe such absurd headlines about aliens is because some of the world's major media outlets publish hyperdramatic articles presenting logical fallacies. Adequate scientists and anyone who read an anatomy textbook in school can definitely say that the remains belong to a stillborn human fetus. The so-called alien has an elongated skull, which, combined with its unusual eyes and 10 ribs on each side of the body, as opposed to the typical 12 in humans, has led to claims of extraterrestrial origin. As it turns out, the reporter who broke the story in the Daily Mail received the first images of the alien anonymously via WhatsApp. That's all the archaeological discoveries. While some speculate about an ancient tiny race of people that coexisted with the Aymara people of the Andes hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, research by anatomists from the University of Stockholm in Sweden and Stony Brook Medical School in the US suggests that the skeleton belongs to the fetus of a premature human baby. Metal door inside the rock. Since the beginning of the 21st century, numerous stories and rumors have surrounded the construction of the Baikal-Amur mainline in Russia, some of which surprisingly have a basis in reality. During active work on this railway line, workers encountered anomalies and paranormal phenomena, causing many to call the line ghost. Among the stories, a special place is occupied by stories about the ghost of the railway, a train passing by without a sound, which was witnessed by both builders and local residents. Scientists believe the origins of these stories may be linked to events in the 1940s when prisoners hijacked a steam locomotive during an uprising in an escape attempt. The BAM tunnels were not spared from mysteries, in particular the Severo-Muisky tunnel, the construction of which took more than 25 years due to unexpected surprises that posed new challenges for the builders. The mysteries associated with these structures, including stories of a white shaman who foreshadows disasters, only enhance the aura of mysticism around the highway. At every step, builders faced new obstacles that required immediate solutions. One of the most intriguing moments was the discovery of a metal door in one of the sections of the tunnel after the breakthrough of an underground spring, which led to the death of 30 people. The door, which became a real mystery, remained an unsolved secret, as did the strange sounds coming from underground, reminiscent of knocking. Attempts to explain these phenomena range from speculation about high concentrations of radon gas, which can cause audio hallucinations, to stories of evil spirits living in the depths of the tunnel. Additional intrigue is brought by the Devil's Bridge, part of the same highway, famous for its secrets and myths. Despite all the technical and mystical difficulties, the Severo-Muisky Tunnel and the Devil's Bridge remain the most important structures of the BAM, and the stories associated with them continue to excite the minds of both specialists and travelers. Answers to many questions have not yet been found, and each new riddle only deepens the mystery of these places. Mystery of the creepy little mermaid revealed. I've already talked about this terrible mermaid several times. On YouTube, you could see videos related to this find, but only now the real truth about her has been revealed. Researchers in Japan conducted an in-depth analysis of an artifact kept at the Enjuin Temple in the city of Asakuchi. The mummy of an unusual creature 30 centimeters long, with a scaly fishtail, a human-like head, and 2 arms aroused the interest of tourists and scientists from all over the world. Scientists carefully studied its composition and published the results. Japanese mythology differs significantly from Greek and Slavic. I would say that in Japanese, the monsters look more creepy and intimidating. So in Japanese myths, there is a certain creature that lives in the water and it is called Ningyo. In fact, these are the same mermaids, only not so beautiful. Hollywood films love to turn the terrible into something beautiful and kind. So they made beautiful mermaids out of Ningyo and made kind and romantic pirates out of medieval sea killers and robbers. No one knows how the Ningyo mummy got into the Enjuin Temple, but a handwritten document from 1903 is stored in the same temple, which says that the mermaid was caught in Kochi Prefecture in 1736 to 1741. In fact, several such specimens are kept in museums in Japan, and only one has been studied in detail today using the most modern equipment. Scientists have used all possible methods to examine the mummy, and now they can say with confidence what it consists of. Typically, such Frankensteins were made from the skeleton of a monkey and a fish, but in our case, the skeleton in the upper part of the body was absent. Scans revealed that the object was made of cloth, cotton, and paper coated with a mixture of charcoal and sandpaste. The head is mostly cotton and covered with what looks like plaster. The hair on the head is animal hair, and the scales are from 2 kinds of fish. The upper part of the body is covered with the skin of a puffer fish, and the lower part is covered with the scales of one of the types of croaker. The fingernails are made from animal horn, and the sharp-toothed jaw used to belong to some kind of carnivorous fish. Radiocarbon analysis of fish scales showed that it was made after the 1800s. Of course, all this turned out to be fake, and in nature there are no mermaids, no Ningyo. But this object will not cease to be a valuable exhibit in the museum. In any case, the mummy is made of very high quality and thought out, which is why it was able to survive for 200 years. The scariest tribe. Traveler and blogger Daniel Pino caused quite a shock when he posted a video of the Witawai tribe from Papua New Guinea. In the video, which has collected more than 17 million views, he shows an encounter with silent tribesmen guarding a sacred waterfall. The Witawai people wear costumes made of mud and clay, and their masks resemble spiritual birds with long noses and menacing expressions. They protect the waterfall from strangers, and they are quite scary. However, viewers have doubted the authenticity of the video. Some commenters claim that the scariest tribe would not let a blogger so close. Others joke that their costumes look like fashionable outfits. Despite the controversy, the video has attracted tourists to the region. Travel agencies now list Witawai as a tourist destination, offering guests eco-lodges and an introduction to the tribe's culture. What do you think? Is this tribe real, or is it really another way to attract naive tourists? Write your opinion in the comments under the video. When the blood becomes liquid. Naples Cathedral. 3 times a year, the crowd waits for the same thing. The bishop lifts a silver reliquary with 2 sealed ampules, turns them over, and the dark mass inside usually becomes liquid before our eyes. This is the dissolution of the blood of Saint Januarius, San Gennaro, the patron saint of the city. The dates are fixed. September 19th, Memorial Day, the first Saturday of May, transfer of the relics, and December 16th, in memory of the salvation from the eruption of Vesuvius. If the blood does not come to life, Neapolitans perceive this as an alarming sign. In the chronicles, plague, earthquakes, financial crises are listed alongside bad years. Saint Bishop of Benevento executed around 305 in Pozzuoli. According to legend, a Christian woman collected his blood in vessels. In the Middle Ages, the relics ended up in Naples. The San Gennaro Chapel contains 2 ampules, a larger one with a brown substance, a smaller one that is almost empty. They cannot be opened, so direct chemical analysis is impossible. The church describes the phenomenon, but does not provide an official scientific explanation. Scientists believe that this is thixotropy. Some gels become fluid when shaken and heated, and then thicken again when left alone. Chemists have shown laboratory samples of blood-like mixtures based on iron-containing compounds, iron oxides, and proteins gelatin. When gently heated with palms and moved, they change from gel to liquid. There are also mundane explanations. The temperature in the cathedral, the constant turning of the reliquary, the natural aging of the contents. The composition of the ampules remains a secret. There is no access for analysis. It is impossible to directly test any hypothesis. Why it works for believers. The ritual takes place in front of everyone. The priest lifts the ampules at the altar, tilts them. The dark mass begins to flow down the glass and becomes lighter. The spectators see the process even from the far rows. For Neapolitans, this is not a chemical trick, but a sign of the city's protection. A healthy compromise looks like this. Scientists offer possible mechanisms. The church gives it meaning. Tradition maintains the community's trust. Eerie discovery under the floor. An ordinary day for Amelia turned into a real investigation. She noticed that one of the floorboards in her house was loose and decided to lift it to find out the reason. However, instead of a simple breakage, strange objects were found under the board. An old coin from 1904 and a small golden book. Opening the book, she discovered that the pages were unusually thick. Inside were old photographs, creepy images of the house, dark shadows in empty rooms, and mysterious portraits. Perhaps the house holds dark secrets of the past, or maybe the photographs have simply aged. However, Amelia herself was seriously scared by the discovery. She admitted that since then she has felt anxious and wants to know what other secrets her house is hiding. Mystery of the Benin Bronze. An unusual discovery was made by archaeologists in Nigeria. Scientists have discovered that African craftsmen made Benin bronze from German ore. The Benin bronze is a large collection of 3,000 brass figurines found in Nigeria in 1897. British soldiers captured them and took them to Britain. For a long time, scientists thought that the figurines were made from melted-down rings that were used as money in the slave trade. But a recent study showed that most of the figurines are made from ore found in Germany in the Rhineland. African metalworkers made figurines in the 16th and 19th centuries. Scientists analyzed the metal rings that Europeans traded for gold, ivory, and slaves in Africa. The researchers compared these rings and the Benin bronze and found that they were made from the same ore. This discovery has helped scholars better understand the history of the slave trade and learn more about how Europeans influenced African art. Now, the largest collection of Benin bronzes is in the British Museum in London. Nigeria asked to return these works of art back to their homeland. Now let's think together whether European museums will return ancient artifacts back to Africa. You can write your opinion in the comments below the video. Time capsule from the late 18th century. In the USA at West Point, experts opened a mysterious box that had lain for 200 years at the base of the monument. Everyone thought that there would be ancient documents there, but there were only coins. It turned out that the box contained old American coins and a commemorative medal. But even despite their age, the cost of each coin is only a few hundred or even thousands of dollars. Archaeologist Hudson was a little upset but still took the lead box to the laboratory where he began to analyze the contents because there could be other mysterious objects lost to time. And although the box did not bring the expected discoveries, each find is a new piece of history. Turned out not to be a man. In Jerusalem, archaeologists made an unexpected discovery while studying the burial place of an ascetic monk. It turned out that the remains belonged to a woman, which is not typical for monastic practices of that time. The grave was found in Khirbat el-Masan, where a Byzantine monastery was located in the 4th, the 7th centuries AD. Around the skeleton lay heavy iron shackles about 10 centimeters in diameter, which led scientists to initially assume that the deceased was a man. However, an analysis of the tooth enamel confirmed that it was a woman. This fact turns the idea of asceticism in the Byzantine Empire upside down. Although there are written sources about female ascetics, such as Melania the Elder and Melania the Roman, archaeological evidence of such practices is extremely rare. Iron shackles indicate extreme forms of self-restraint in the search for spiritual perfection. Until now, it was believed that such practices were exclusively male. The monastery was located on the pilgrimage route to Jerusalem, making it an important center not only for prayer but also a refuge for travelers. The discovery of this burial suggests that women played a more significant role in monastic communities than previously thought. The Holy Grail of the Nazis. This artifact has become increasingly popular over time, especially in the context of research into the esoteric beliefs of the Nazi regime. It is true that a number of senior Nazi leaders, including Himmler, were interested in the occult and mystical traditions. However, it is necessary to understand that most of the information on this topic is based on myths and guesses. However, there is a version that the Nazis were actually looking for the Holy Grail in the hope of using its mythical properties for their own purposes. In combination with archaeological expeditions organized by the Ahnenerbe SS Research Institute, this version becomes even more interesting. Some historians claim that one of the goals of Nazi expeditions to Tibet and other regions was to search for relics, including the Grail. However, there is no clear evidence for this. There is also an opinion that the Grail could be located in southern France, in the Cathar region, and that the Nazis carried out excavations there. This myth has been further inflated by popular culture, especially movies and books. A number of works depict Nazis pursuing sacred relics, including the Grail, to gain supernatural power or justify their ideology. Scientific and historical research on the topic proves that while the Nazis were indeed interested in the occult and mysticism, most of these claims are based on myth. However, the idea that the Nazis may have been searching for the Holy Grail has become one of the most recognizable and disturbing themes in modern pop culture. Samurai treasure. Not far from Tokyo, the largest treasure trove of antique coins in Japanese history was discovered. The treasure is kept in a huge clay pot, which is now on display in Kumagaya at the Saitama Prefectural Cultural Treasury, that is, the National Museum. The historical treasure of bronze coins not only reveals new historical data, but also serves as evidence of the natural chemical processes of time. The copper in their bronze alloy has oxidized over the past 400 years, causing the coins to take on a bright green hue due to a patina similar to that covering the Statue of Liberty. The clay pot of coins, which is more than half a meter wide, was likely buried hundreds of years ago. It was discovered by archaeologists last year in ruins that were the site of a medieval samurai pavilion. The coins date back to the 15th century during the Ming Dynasty in China. Coins from the Tang Dynasty, 7th century, were also found at the same excavation site. They are associated with Chinese dynasties because Japan was one of the last great civilizations to adopt its own coin system. The coins were held together on ropes passing through holes, and each rope contained 1,000 coins. The standard of the time was one string of 1,000 bronze coins equal to 1 ounce of silver. This knowledge of the historical period allowed archaeologists to estimate the number of coins without removing them from the giant pot. The number 260 inches was engraved on its lid. This coin hoard represented a huge fortune in 15th and 16th century Japan. For this money, one could buy enough rice to feed 500 people for a year. Latest photos of extinct animals. The Red Book is often cited as a symbol of the protection of endangered species, but few people know about the existence of the Black Book, a sad catalog of animals and plants lost forever. This document serves as a poignant reminder that we have lost 844 species over the past 5 centuries. Today I want to talk about some animals that disappeared due to humans in the last century, whose last specimens were recorded in photographs or videos. The Barbary lion, native to North Africa, disappeared in the 1920s. Huge and powerful with a majestic mane, this lion was hunted to extinction because of its detriment to livestock, especially after the advent of firearms. The last lion was killed in 1922. The marsupial wolf, or thylacine, lived in Australia and New Guinea and was later driven to Tasmania by dingoes. The shooting by farmers began when thylacines began attacking livestock. In 1936, the last thylacine in the zoo died, but its appearance was preserved on video. The Bali tiger, which lived on the island of Bali, was one of the smallest tigers. Hunting of these tigers began in the 1910s, and the last female was killed in 1937, leading to the extinction of the species. The Mexican grizzly, which inhabited the territories of Mexico and the United States, was last seen in 1960. Despite the ban on hunting these bears in 1959, they have disappeared due to hunting and habitat loss. These stories are only a small part of the tragic fates of animals that have disappeared due to human activity. There are legends that modern humanity has found living mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, and supposedly these photographs confirm their recent existence. Where the Ark stood. Shiloh in central Israel is called the main sanctuary of the era before the Jerusalem Temple. Here they excavated the foundation of a rectangular building 31 by 15.5 meters, an exact proportion of 2:1 and a strictly east-west orientation. These are exactly the parameters that the Exodus describes for a portable sanctuary, the Tabernacle, essentially a camping tent temple. Inside, they found a powerful partition dividing the space into two parts, the holy place and an isolated room like the Holy of Holies, where in the biblical tradition, the Ark stood. The main evidence is not in the walls, but in the number of victims. Over 100,000 bones of sheep, goats, and cattle, dating back to about 1200 BC. In 97% of cases, the right side of the carcasses is facing up. This coincides with the instruction of the Book of Leviticus, where the right side is given to the priest. This profile is not typical for a regular settlement, but is normal for a cult center with constant sacrifices. So far, this is not proof of the location of the Ark as an object, but archaeology provides what the texts lacked: precise dimensions, orientation, layout, and kitchen traces of the ritual. There are too many coincidences to see Shiloh as an ordinary courtyard. This looks like the address of a shrine that has been sought for centuries only in books. A curious discovery in Egypt. Two divers in Egypt have discovered unique artifacts from the Greco-Roman period, raising hundreds of ancient relics from the seabed. However, instead of handing over the finds to the authorities, they tried to keep them for themselves. The artifacts were found in Abu Shir Bay off the coast of Alexandria, in a place where the sunken cities of Heraklion and Canopus once stood. As a result of the police operation, 448 items were confiscated from the divers. 305 coins, 53 figurines, 41 axes, 14 bronze bowls, 12 spears, and even 3 heads from ancient statues. The coins are decorated with images of animals: lions, elephants, turtles, dolphins, as well as Pegasus, the legendary winged horse. Many of the bronze artifacts have become covered with a turquoise patina due to centuries spent underwater. According to the examination, the finds date back to the period from 500 BC to 400 AD, covering the reign of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the subsequent dominance of Rome. The divers are suspected of attempting to steal and possibly hide some of the artifacts. Ancient Roman relief depicting a god. In the north of England, not far from the defensive wall of Hadrian, there was a fortified military camp, Vindolanda. It was built back in 85 AD to defend against the Celtic tribes of the Picts and Brigantes from Scotland. The fort existed until the 4th century AD, and at this place, amateur archaeologists found a sculptural relief depicting a naked man with a spear next to a horse or donkey. Archaeologists have been excavating here for more than 100 years, and during this time they have found thousands of artifacts, and the unique ones are exhibited in the British Museum. A few years ago, 25 wooden writing tablets dating back to the 1st, 2nd, and centuries of our era were found there, which are comparable in importance to Novgorod birch bark letters. Excellent preservation was achieved thanks to the clay soil. Now you know that sands, clays, and swamps are the best places to preserve artifacts. If you want to leave something for your descendants or add work to archaeologists in the future, then bury it in clay, in sand, or in a swamp, and we will return to the study of the ancient plate. According to archaeologists, usually when people are depicted naked, this indicates their belonging to the gods. It is not customary to draw an ordinary cavalry warrior next to a horse without pants. This man has a spear in his hands. The spear was the main attribute of the god of war, Mars. However, some features of the head look like wings, and this is more like the god of travel, Mercury. The horse and donkey were also often painted next to Mercury. But most of all, archaeologists like to interpret the finds according to the place of their discovery. Near this place was an ancient cavalry barracks. The locals could portray an unknown god who had the characteristics of Mars and Mercury. But if archaeologists fail to find something similar in the future, then this image of a god can be attributed to an artist's mistake. It's good that these amateur archaeologists were not fined, like our next heroes, also from Britain. The world's oldest runestone. Archaeologists in Norway have made a sensational discovery, possibly the oldest known runestone. Sandstone fragments with runes carved into them were found in separate graves at the ancient cemetery of Svingerud. Researchers have discovered that the pieces fit together like a puzzle, forming a single stone with a unique engraving. Runes are ancient letters used to write Germanic languages before the transition to the Latin alphabet. The origin of runic writing remains a subject of debate, but early alphabets were used before 700 AD. Dating the stone using radiocarbon analysis showed that it is between 50 BC and 275 AD, making it the oldest known runic monument. What is special about the find is that the inscriptions on the stone are an unusual mixture of runes and unknown symbols. The carvings may have been made by different people at different times, and the stone itself may have been reused. Researchers believe that it originally served as a memorial marker for one grave, but was later broken and redistributed among other burials. Metal men. Back in 1719, in the usual mining town of Falun in Sweden, everything went on as usual, until the miners who came on shift stumbled upon a strange find. It was a human body. The young man looked as if he had just died. In general, corpses are a common part of life. They do not surprise anyone. But this dead man seemed to be both flesh and metal. It was as if every millimeter of his body had been treated with something and applied the thinnest layer of metal. This was beyond the power of even a skilled craftsman, because every single hair on his body was covered with metal. The management of the mine did not know what to do with the unusual find. The corpse was exhibited in a local museum, whose visitors took the unusual exhibit as a miracle, believing that the man was metal during his lifetime, almost like a Tin Woodman or Terminator. One day, the grandchildren brought an elderly lady to the museum. She stood in front of the exhibit for a while, clutching her chest because she recognized her fiancé, Mats Israelsson, in the find. It's been about 40 years since they last met. The guy was in a hurry to go on a date with the bride, but he never showed up at her place. They searched for Mats for some time. Gradually, the parents calmed down and reconciled. Friends forgot about him. The girl married another guy. Probably on the way, he met criminals who killed him and threw the corpse into the mine. The deceased should have been buried, but the local authorities realized that they could make money on it. There were a huge number of people wishing to visit the museum, and tourists came from neighboring countries. As they say, money has no smell, but the exhibit kinda does. Under the action of air, the metal layer began to thin and evaporate, and the organic matter started simply decomposing. In 1749, the body was buried, but after 10 years, they dug it up again and returned it to its original place. Only in the 30s was he finally buried forever, leaving a wax copy in the museum. But it turns out that the victim of an accidental murder is not the only such case. There were other finds which were a combination of organic matter and metal. In science, this phenomenon is known as pseudomorphism. This is such an effect when one minerals replace others with the preservation of external forms. It is problematic to reproduce it in the laboratory. It is too expensive, time-consuming, and pointless. The case with Mats went down in history precisely because of the scale of the process that engulfed the whole human body, and not the remains of a small animal, insect, or shell. Pristine tomb. Just 30 kilometers from Cairo, archaeologists have found an ancient, intact tomb which is already 4,400 years old. This amazing discovery was made in the famous Sahara necropolis. The tomb was built for a high-ranking priest who served with the pharaoh of the 5th dynasty and his family. One can understand that his life was full. The walls depict people who make wine, play musical instruments, sail in boats, and hunt. The building of the tomb is amazing. Its interior is decorated with large painted statues and impressive inscriptions that reveal the names of the wife and mother of the priest. Archaeologists have already begun to explore the 5 burial shafts inside the tomb, and we have yet to learn much about ancient life in Egypt. Tomb of Antifi. Antifi, a nomarch of ancient Egypt who lived around 2100 BC, left behind a unique legacy. Although his status was below pharaoh, Antifi was careful to leave an ominous warning on the walls of his tomb. It says that any ruler who encroaches on his tomb will be rejected by the falcon god Cayman. In addition, a curse will fall on the descendants of the offender, predicting them the loss of their inheritance. Modern archaeologists who examined the tomb were not afraid of these predictions, but it seems that even robbers in ancient times did not dare to touch the last refuge of Antifi. England's oldest scientific instrument. Discovered in England, a palm-sized copper quadrant dating back to 1311 was used to tell time. This artifact is 15 years older than Chaucer's famous astrolabe from the British Museum. Researchers point to the rarity of medieval English instruments and their importance for scientific understanding of the era. The device is estimated at $130,000, $190,000. $190,000. It is being offered at auction along with valuable books, manuscripts, and a 17th century silver microscope made by Antony van Leeuwenhoek. Quadrants are believed to have come to Europe from Muslim Spain at the end of the 13th century. In these devices, daytime was divided into 12 hours, the duration of which varied depending on the season and latitude of the place. The first hour began at dawn. Noon occurred at the end of the 6th hour and sunset at the end of the 12th. This made summer hours longer than winter ones. Quadrants were the tools of traders, clergy, and students. It is known that Queen Isabella, wife of Edward II, received several of these devices as a gift in 1358. Quadrant determined the time of day by the altitude of the sun using a trigonometric formula that was accurate at the equator. Despite the errors, the device was useful not only for determining time, but also for solving mathematical problems related to measuring distances and heights. Acheulean chopper with fossilized clam. A unique hand chopper was found in England dating back to the Acheulean era about 1.95 million years ago. This artifact is interesting because of the fossilized mollusk on its surface. Scientists from the University of Cambridge examined it and came to the conclusion that the tool is no different in shape and manufacturing method from other Acheulean hand choppers discovered in Britain. The dimensions of the hand chopper are 13 x 8 x 3, 5 centimeters. It was previously assumed that the ancient master left the mollusk fossil because of its aesthetic value. However, the researchers believe that it would be impossible to do this due to the fragility of the chopper material. Oldest human tooth. Scientists have announced a sensational discovery in Germany. Ancient dental fossils estimated to be almost 10 million years old that they say do not fit into the established chronology of human history. What's truly shocking is that one of these fossils resembles the teeth of man's earliest ancestors. However, until now, such teeth have only been found in Africa, not Europe, and even then the existing range of fossils is millions of years younger. Found in September 2016 near the German city of Eppelsheim, two well-preserved teeth date back to approximately 9.7 million years ago. One of the teeth, an upper right first molar, is similar in characteristics to other specimens found in the area. But the other tooth, the upper left canine, is different, and the researchers say its outline and shape are similar to those of hominin species, including Australopithecus afarensis. The problem is that Lucy is estimated to be only 3 million years old, and it is believed that humanity's earliest ancestors began their migration from Africa to Europe and Asia approximately 100,000 years ago. So the question is, who did these teeth belong to? Which were in the wrong place and at the wrong time, and how did they get there? Travel chest with books. Now, any of us can store all our favorite books on a smartphone or in special ebooks. Previously, there was no such possibility, and there was a need to go on a trip with books. For this, people used a travel chest with books. Now, around the world, there are only about 100 such chests left. In 2019, Oxford Bodleian Libraries purchased one from a private buyer. The case came from France and was made of wood and leather in the 1400s. It also had metal clasps and hand straps for carrying. Most of the surviving book chests date back to the 1500s, making them among the oldest ever found. The most interesting find was a woodcut attached to the inside of the lid. It was a play called God the Father and Majesty, a draft from a liturgical book in Paris. Overall, the woodcut was incredibly rare. Not only has it been found in its original context and dated to the earliest attempts at printing in Europe, only 4 types are known to exist. Remains of Jesus' brother. A 2,000-year-old ossuary with the inscription, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus, has been discovered in Israel. This has sparked a heated debate. Perhaps the box contained the remains of James the Just, the first bishop of Jerusalem and brother of Jesus. Today, the artifact is on display in Atlanta among 350 ancient relics from the time of Christ. However, its authenticity remains in question. The owner of the ossuary, collector Oded Golan, was accused of forging the inscription, claiming that he added the phrase, brother of Jesus. But after a multi-year trial, the charges were dropped, although the judge clarified that this does not prove the authenticity of the artifact. If the inscription is real, the ossuary will be the oldest material evidence of the existence of Jesus. In the 1st century, Jews kept the bones of the deceased in limestone boxes, so the discovery of such an ossuary is not surprising. In 2017, another artifact related to him was found, the ancient text, the First Apocalypse of James. It says that Jesus passed on secret knowledge to his brother, including a prediction of his death. This text was banned because it did not correspond to the canonical New Testament. 19th century Thumbelina. The story began in 1841 in Massachusetts in an ordinary family. A girl was born there who certainly pleased her parents with an excellent appetite and was completely healthy. But at some point, the parents noticed that something was wrong with the girl. She completely stopped growing. The doctors only shrugged and declared that the girl was absolutely healthy, but most likely she would forever remain the size of a child. Its dimensions were comparable to a child 1.5-2 years old. Parents accepted this feature of the girl and raised her as if everything was fine with her. As a child, she planned to become a teacher, but her cousin invited her to participate in the midget show where she became their queen. She was very popular. She constantly sang and danced. Such a hobby gave her great pleasure and brought good money. At some point, the famous impresario Phineas Taylor Barnum drew attention to the girl Lavinia. He invited the girl to his place, where she attracted the attention of another midget who even proposed, but Lavinia refused because the guy was 7 years younger than her. She gave her heart to another admirer of hers named Charles Stratton. In 1863, the couple got married. The ceremony was attended by former boyfriend George Nutt and the youngest daughter of the Warren family, Millie, who was also born small. Tickets for the ceremony cost $50, and there were about 10,000 guests. After the necessary time, the wife began to appear on the show with the baby. She never said that it was her child, but she did not deny it either. It turned out that all this was a PR of impresario Barnum. That way, he warmed up the crowd. Every time they came to another city, he, to put it mildly, rented the child in one of the local shelters, and after the show, he gave the child back. Lavinia never got her own child. This was influenced by the case with her younger sister. Little Minnie was even shorter than her sister by 10 centimeters, but she married a taller man. Happiness was not long. A year later, she died from complications during childbirth. Later, Lavinia faced the death of her husband and already wanted to quit her shows, but the accumulated money was not enough for her to meet her old age. She continued her tour and met a new love there. Later, the couple returned to their hometown where they opened their own store. The Queen of the Lilliput died in 1919, having lived to the age of 78. Mysterious footprint underground. Another mysterious find was discovered by archaeologists in Israel in the Old City of Jerusalem. In a previously buried massive ditch, the researchers found an engraved handprint on the wall. Scientists carried out excavations near one of the main highways of the city. It is believed that the ditch was dug by the Muslim defenders of the city around the 10th century to strengthen the defenses of the city walls. Archaeologists had no idea that one of the most important city streets was built right over a huge ditch. It is interesting that the ditch was carved directly into the rock. Its width is 10 meters and its depth is from 2 to 7 meters. Archaeologists still cannot understand why the ancient builders left a handprint more than 1,000 years ago. Interestingly, this imprint could belong to some kind of ruler or priest, as well as an ordinary builder with a sense of humor. As we all know, ditches were dug in order to fill them with water. In our case, the ditch was never filled with water. Ancient engineers believed that the size of this barrier would be enough to hold or slow down the enemy. Ship in Serbia. On the site of the ancient Roman camp of Viminacium, which was the capital of the ancient province of Moesia, Serbian archaeologists are examining the remains of a 13-meter river vessel. This historic camp is located 144 kilometers southeast of Belgrade, the capital of Serbia. This is not the first time that coal miners have found ancient traces of former life in this area. Unfortunately, the ship was not fully preserved and was damaged, but as archaeologists noted, the wood is in good condition. Experts have already moved the remains of the ship to an archaeological camp for further research. Now scientists are trying to determine to what period the found vessel belongs. According to experts, the ship can date back to both the Roman era and the last century. Archaeologists plan to apply for funding from the Serbian Ministry of Culture to continue their research. When the museum is built, visitors will be able to see all the ships and boats found on this section of the Danube. Sacrifice in Germany. Fertility rites were performed in Germany 4,800 years ago, and today we already know that they sacrificed. In Halberstadt, archaeologists found a well with the skeletons of various animals: bulls, dogs, and hares. This happened a long time ago, at a time when people lived among nature and appreciated it. They wanted the land to be fertile. They loved everything that surrounded them. And most importantly, they believed that if animals were sacrificed, the gods would help them and the harvest would be good. The well belonged to an ancient culture that originated in the lands of modern Poland and then moved to Germany. Scientists think that people dug a well specifically for these rites. First, the bones of 4 bulls were found in the well, and then whole skeletons: a dog, hares, and another bull. This suggests that people already knew how to breed animals. Hares, which were also sacrificed, are considered very prolific. Hares and rabbits can produce offspring several times a year. This once again confirms that the well was used for fertility rites. And next to the well, archaeologists found a stone tomb. Perhaps someone important from this ancient society was buried there. Hitler's bunker. Hitler's bunker, known as the Führer bunker, was Adolf Hitler's final refuge during the height of World War II and the final days of his life. Located deep underground in the center of Berlin, this bunker was part of a vast underground network designed to protect the Nazi leadership from Soviet bombing. Construction of the Führer bunker began in 1936 and was completed in 1944 when it became clear that the war was moving toward an inevitable end. The bunker consisted of 2 separate parts: the old part built in 1936 and the new, deeper and fortified part added in 1944. The internal space included living quarters, conference rooms, places for work and recreation, as well as the necessary infrastructure for a long stay underground. In April 1945, as the Red Army tightened its ring around Berlin, Hitler moved to the Führer bunker, where he spent the last weeks of his life. Many high-ranking Nazi officials and their families were also evacuated here. Despite the fact that the bunker was equipped with modern life support systems at that time, the conditions inside were far from comfortable due to overcrowding, lack of air, and constant noise from artillery shelling. On April 30th, 1945, realizing the inevitability of defeat and fearing being captured by Soviet troops, Hitler committed suicide by taking poison and simultaneously shooting himself in the head. His body, as well as the body of Eva Braun, who became his wife a day before his death, were burned in the garden of the Reich Chancellery, not far from the entrance to the bunker. After the war, the area where the bunker was located came under East German control. The remains of the bunker were partially destroyed and filled up. The site of Hitler's former hideout today houses ordinary residential development, as well as an information board telling about its history. The site remains a source of interest to researchers, tourists, and those seeking to understand the final days of one of the darkest periods in human history. Drone saw an ancient city. Romania, Neamt County. A fortified settlement about 5,000 years old was found in a dense forest. It is not visible from the ground. The ramparts and ditches are completely hidden by the treetops. LiDAR, a laser that scans the terrain through the foliage and builds an accurate elevation model, helped. Drones flew over the massif, and a plan appeared on the screen. Platforms on the tops, closed lines of ramparts, deep ditches stretching for hundreds of meters in places. These are not random embankments. Defense lines overlap the ridges, entrances are controlled, and terraces for housing and workshops can be seen inside. Such a volume of excavation work is impossible without organization. You need a team, a project, and time. Field checks confirm the model. In the sections, there is a cultural layer and charcoal for future dating. For now, archaeologists are working carefully. First a map, then spot excavations. Based on the shape of the ramparts and ditches, the monument dates back to the transition from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age. Ancient 1,000-year-old axes. In the northern part of Poland in Kościewo, treasure hunter Dennis Konkol, using a metal detector, discovered an astonishing find: 5 axes from the Bronze Age. These artifacts lay in the ground for more than 3,000 years. It is worth noting that in Poland, independent excavations with a metal detector are prohibited without special permission. Therefore, the discovery was immediately reported to the authorities. These bronze axes, discovered at a depth of 20 to 30 centimeters, are of particular value since such finds are rare in this area. Archaeologists have suggested that the axes may be associated with the Baltic culture and are characterized as the Tautoshe type. It is also suggested that the axes could have been part of a ritual offering, which speaks to the complex trade and religious practices of the communities of that time. This find is not only historically valuable, but also reveals new aspects of the cultures that lived in Poland in the Bronze Age. In the near future, the artifacts will be delivered to the Archaeological Museum in Gdansk for more detailed study and preservation.
Tolosa's gold. An ancient treasure is considered one of the most famous cursed objects in history. 2,000 years ago, the ancient French city of Toulouse, known to the Romans as Tolosa, was home to the Gallic Volca tribes. When the Tolosa Gauls returned home from campaigning and plundering in the eastern Mediterranean, they found the Romans welcoming them, lured by the huge reserves of gold they had brought with them. It is said that this loot was cursed, and the Romans who took possession of the gold were never seen or heard from again. The treasure is rumored to still be out there somewhere, with many claiming it lies at the bottom of a lake in the south of France. However, treasure seekers fear the fate that could befall those who dare to rescue it. Accidental find on the school playground. In England, in Brownstone, a 13-year-old school student made an amazing discovery while walking in the schoolyard. At first she thought the find was an ordinary 5-pence coin, but it soon became clear that it was a real treasure dating from the reign of William the Conqueror around 1069. This unique treasure was found by accident. Earlier, workers were replacing a lamppost on the school grounds and probably dug it to the surface. The girl found an object that seemed like an ordinary coin and showed it to the history teacher. He started looking for information on it and immediately realized that they had found something truly ancient. Experts from Leicestershire County Council confirmed the authenticity of the find. It appears that at the time the coin was in use, the site of the present school was either farmland or woodland, with a nearby road linking Leicester to other cities. For a farmer or worker, losing such a coin would mean a great loss because it was of great value. Memorial marks on the bricks of history. The Mehrangarh Fort in Jodhpur is one of the most majestic structures in India, but its beauty hides dark pages of history. On the inner gate of Loha Pole, 15 imprints of women's hands are still visible, silent witnesses to the tragic tradition of sati. Sati is an ancient Hindu ritual according to which widows were supposed to burn on the funeral pyre of their husbands. Sometimes women did this voluntarily, but more often they were forced. This practice was officially banned by the British in 1829, but in India it continued until the 20th century. In 1843, after the death of Maharaja Man Singh, his wives left handprints on the wall before stepping into the fire. However, this is not the only case in the history of the fort. In 1731, 6 wives and 58 concubines of Maharaja Ajit Singh also committed suicide in the flames. Tragedies have been going on since the fort's foundation. In the 15th century, Saint Chidyawale Baba cursed Rao Yoda, saying his land would suffer from perpetual drought. To lift the curse, the king ordered a resident of Megwal, Rajaram, to be walled up alive within the fort's walls. But the curse still seems to be in effect. Maharajas have died here, tourists have fallen, and in 2008, hundreds were killed or injured during a stampede at the Chamunda Devi temple. Ancient sword replica. An interesting incident occurred at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, USA. Their museum kept what they thought was a replica of an ancient sword. This Bronze Age weapon was found in the Danube River in Budapest, Hungary in the 1930s. Hungarian archaeologists visiting this museum in the USA asked to take a closer look at the sword, and what they recognized amazed them. The sword was exposed to X-rays to ionize the material it was made from. By measuring the energy and intensity of the X-rays coming out of the material, scientists can find out what it is. In the case of the sword, it has been found to be almost identical to other Bronze Age European swords. It contained a similar content of bronze, copper, and tin. Usually, in this way, archaeologists manage to prove that the artifact turns out to be a fake and not the original, as previously thought. In our case, the study of the sword by archaeologists was shocking. The sword, believed to be a replica, turned out to be almost 3,000 years older than previously thought. But the team of scientists was able to prove this too late, so the weapon will not be shown to visitors in the museum. They want to study it in even more detail in order to understand who it belonged to and how it got there. Researchers believe the sword was placed in the Danube as part of an ancient ritual, perhaps in memory of a lost loved one or a battle. The secret of the Araballos. The ancient Greeks took care of their health and were actively involved in sports. Their faithful assistants in this matter were arybali, small spherical vessels with a narrow neck. They were inserted into leather pouches that were attached to the wrist to carry them around. Athletes used arybalos to always have aromatic oils on hand. They rubbed their bodies with these oils before training and competitions and then scraped them off their skin along with the dirt with a special scraper. Oils were also used in the bath. Arybalos were handy and compact, made from clay and other materials such as faience, bronze, and glass. Women also had their own vessels, alabasters, which served to store aromatic oils and liquids. Unlike men, women preferred more ingenious forms, such as animals or sculpted heads that could stand upright on a flat surface.
Tomb of the Unknown Queen. The main sensational discovery is the tomb of the hitherto unknown Queen Ninth and 300 coffins and more than 100 mummies discovered. Previously, artifacts associated with the pharaoh Teti and the sarcophagus of the treasurer Ramesses II have already been found in this place. Sahara is an ancient cemetery where archaeologists have been digging for 2 years. Among the latest finds are the remains of Tutankhamun's likely generals and advisors, and even more amazingly, a pyramid dedicated to an ancient queen whose name has only just been recognized. Her name is Nate. Before that, her name was unknown, and as the famous Egyptologist Zahi Hawass noted, it's just incredible when you can literally rewrite history by adding new characters to it. The researchers discovered a whole system of 22 tunnels where people were buried in the New Kingdom, which had not previously been found in Sahara. Each coffin is decorated with the face of the deceased and scenes from the Book of the Dead, and also contains the name of the deceased. Some coffins even have 2 lids, and the most amazing of the coffins is decorated with a golden mask of a woman. In addition, various artifacts were found in coffins and mines, including figurines, statues of the god Ptah Saker, and even a metal axe found in the hand of a military man, and of course another pyramid dedicated to a previously unknown queen. Train with Nazi gold. The legend of the Nazi gold train is one of the most intriguing stories surrounding the end of World War II. According to this legend, in the last days of the war, when Nazi Germany stood on the verge of defeat, a train loaded with gold, jewelry, and works of art was sent from Breslau, now Wrocław, Poland, towards the Oven Mountain Range, where, according to rumors, there were underground warehouses and bunkers. This train is said to have disappeared without a trace in the chaos of the final days of the war, leaving behind many questions and speculation. Some versions claim that the train was hidden in one of the many tunnels in the oven area, the entrances and exits of which were then blown up or walled up to hide the treasure from the approaching Allied forces. For decades, treasure hunters, explorers, and historians have tried to find the lost train using both historical evidence and modern technology. Despite numerous expeditions and searches, no convincing evidence of the existence of the train was found. However, from time to time, new reports about possible finds appear in the media, once again reigniting interest in this mystery.
Ancient arrow. Somewhere in the heights of the Scandinavian mountains, scientists have found an arrow older than the pyramids. It is 4,000 years old. At first, archaeologists thought it was from the Iron Age, but as they say, the devil is in the details. When the ice enveloping the arrow began to melt, scientists saw a special stone tip. It turned out that this arrow dates back to the Stone Age. This is the first time such antiquity has been discovered at this site. The arrow hid in the Norwegian mountains and now, thanks to climate change, has decided to show itself to the world. Now, many archaeologists are exploring glaciers in search of treasures hidden under the ice cover. Aluminum wedge. The Ayuda aluminum wedge, also known as the Ayuda object, is one of the most mysterious and controversial finds of our time. According to various sources, it was discovered in 1973 in Romania on the banks of the Mureș River under a layer of sand about 10 meters deep next to the bones of a mastodon. The main reason for the conspiracy theories surrounding the Ayuda aluminum wedge is that it is made from aluminum, a material unknown to mankind before the 1800s. While the wedge is believed to be around 10,000 years old, the composition of the wedge includes 89% aluminum, 6.2% copper, 1.8% zinc, and other elements. Aluminum production requires temperatures of 1,000 degrees, and mass production began only in 1885. The wedge is covered with a thick layer of oxide, the age of which is estimated at 300–400 years. After the discovery, the object was transferred to the Archaeological Institute of Cluj-Napoca for research, but the dating method was not specified. The basis for the theory of the extraterrestrial origin of the wedge is its aluminum composition. Romanian ufologist Florin Georgita and other researchers consider the wedge to be evidence of extraterrestrial activity in the past. However, there are also scientists who consider the find to be a fake, the purpose of creation and origin of which remain unclear. Since 1995, the Ayuda wedge is no longer on public display and is kept in an undisclosed location, although there are photographs confirming its existence. Lampshade from Buchenwald. In April 1945, when the United States liberated the Buchenwald concentration camp, Karl Straub, a political prisoner, discovered a lampshade made of human skin in the house of SS officers. From then until 1990, during the GDR era, the lampshade was displayed in a museum located on the site of the former camp, becoming a symbol of Nazi horror. It was later removed from public display, sparking controversy over its origin, whether it was actually leather or plastic. Recently, a conference was held at the Buchenwald Museum with the participation of Mark Benecke, a criminal biologist who, after a detailed examination, confirmed that the lampshade was made of human skin. The museum emphasized that although the display of human remains at exhibitions is contrary to ethical standards, they preserve such exhibits in the collection as evidence of Nazi crimes.
Curse of Carlisle. At the center of the underground passage in the city of Carlisle is a 14-ton granite boulder. The curse stone, as it is called, was installed as part of the New Millennium celebrations in 2001. Hundreds of words are engraved on the stone, part of a curse composed in 1525 by Archbishop Dunbar of Glasgow to ward off the ravers who pillaged along the borders of England and Scotland. Following the stone's installation, press coverage included floods, a foot-and-mouth epidemic, a large fire in the city, and a terrible season for the local football team, all of which occurred just a few years after the stone's placement. Opponents of the stone, including a local councillor, demanded its removal, citing a curse. The local White Witch stated that removing the stone would only acknowledge the reality of the curse and therefore increase its power.
Jurassic underwater monster. On the Jurassic coast of England, in Dorset, archaeologists discovered a giant skull of a sea monster. This 2-meter skull belongs to a pliosaur, a powerful sea predator that lived 150 million years ago. The fossil, one of the best preserved, was found by Steve Etches, a paleontologist from Dorset, who now plans to complete it with the rest of the skeleton. The impressive size of the skull and excellent preservation make it a unique specimen in world paleontology. The skull includes the lower jaw connected to the rest, as in a living reptile. Particularly notable are the 130 teeth, long and sharp, with thin ridges on the back allowing them to be quickly pulled from the flesh of prey. The pliosaur, with a length of 10, 12 meters and 4 powerful limbs flippers, was the most dangerous predator of the Jurassic oceans. Its powerful bite and unique teeth structure made it an ideal killing machine. According to Dr. Andre Rowe from the University of Bristol, the pliosaur could have hunted anything that came its way. Having examined the skull and determined the bite force of the pliosaur, it turned out that it was twice as powerful as that of the strongest jaws of modern animals, saltwater crocodiles. The presence of specialized glands and a third eye in the pliosaur also indicates developed sensory organs. Mysore Electrician King. The Principality of Mysore is today the state of Karnataka in southern India. Its ruler, Krishnaraja Wodeyar IV, went down in history not for his palaces, but for his reforms. He ascended the throne at the age of 11 and began ruling fully at the age of 18. His personal capital was estimated at $8.5 billion in today's money, but his luxurious diamond collections went not into the treasury, but into development projects. The main step was the Shivana Samudra Hydroelectric Power Station, 1905. It was the first hydroelectric power station in Asia. It was because of it that Bangalore became a city with electric lighting before many European capitals. When the construction ran out of funds, the Maharaja sold some of the family jewels, including the diamond tiara, to complete the Krishnaraja Sagar Dam. He broke caste barriers. He banned untouchability, child marriages under 8 years of age, and introduced compulsory primary education. He gave a quarter of government positions to those who did not belong to the priestly elite and paid for the education of widows and disabled children from his personal fund. Mahatma Gandhi called him a holy king. Lord Curzon, the Viceroy of British India, noted, "If you want to see what modernization should look like, look at Mysore." When summing up the results in 1940, the British newspaper The Times wrote, "A ruler who is hard to find equal in the 20th century in terms of love of the people and efficiency of governance."
Hippo tooth artifact. Archaeologists have discovered in Spain an ancient artifact made from a hippopotamus tooth. This find, dating back to the second quarter of the 3rd millennium BC, confirms the existence of trade links between the Pyrenees, Africa, and the Middle East 4,500 years ago. The rare object was found among artifacts from the settlement of Bobila Madorel in Barcelona, which belonged to the Veraza culture. The length of the find is about 10 centimeters. One end is pointed, the other is broken off. Scientists assume that this is a tool, possibly related to textile production. Analysis showed that the artifact was made not from a fossilized, but from a fresh hippopotamus tooth. Traces of red pigment mixed with organic matter, possibly animal fat or egg white, were preserved on its surface.
Monastery in Sudan, decorated with Christian frescoes. Archaeologists from Poland have discovered a mysterious complex of rooms with Christian frescoes in the medieval monastery of Old Dongola in Africa. This city was the capital of Makuria, one of the famous African states, which became Christian in the 6th century. Scientists studied houses of the 16th and 19th centuries and accidentally found a church with beautiful frescoes and inscriptions in Greek and Old Nubian. Under one of the houses, they found a secret passage leading to a room with amazing frescoes on the walls. On the walls were depicted the Mother of God Christ, the Archangel Michael, and the Nubian ruler. The peculiarity of this picture is that the ruler bows and kisses the hand of Christ, and the Archangel Michael protects them with his wings. Such a scene has no parallel in Nubian painting. Another unusual fresco is the image of the Mother of God dressed in dark clothes, holding a cross and a book. Christ on the opposite wall also holds a book and gives a blessing. Interest in the history of ancient African civilizations and cultures is growing, and finds such as this one are becoming a kind of key to understanding the past of this continent. Now scientists want to find out for what purposes these mysterious rooms were used and how exactly they were connected with the life of people of that time. Perhaps in the future, archaeologists will be able to discover even more secrets and mysteries associated with this amazing complex in Old Dongola and other African states. It is important to preserve these finds and continue to study history and culture in order to pass on knowledge of ancient civilizations to future generations. That's what our channel is for, to which I recommend subscribing and clicking on the bell so as not to miss a new video.
Silver treasure, SS Gairsoppa. The silver treasure of the SS Gairsoppa has become one of the most significant underwater finds of our time, turning into a real sensation in the world of treasures and underwater exploration. The British merchant ship SS Gairsoppa was sunk by a German submarine in February 1941 during World War II while en route from India to Britain, carrying valuable cargo, including huge quantities of silver. At war and suffering from metal shortages, Britain at the time actively used sea routes to transport raw materials and valuables from its colonies. The Gairsoppa was carrying over 200 tons of silver bullion, intended to finance the war effort and support the country's economy. The sinking of the ship was a blow to Britain's resources. The wreckage of Gairsoppa was discovered in 2011 at a depth of more than 4.7 kilometers in the North Atlantic, which was made possible thanks to modern technologies for searching and studying underwater objects. The silver recovery operation proved extremely difficult due to depth, weather conditions, and technical limitations. However, it was successfully carried out and most of the silver was recovered.
Hidden tunnel. Under the colossal temple dedicated to the god Osiris, a mysterious tunnel has been discovered that has been hidden for centuries. And here is where the fun begins. There are versions that this tunnel can lead to the long-lost tomb of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. The joint Dominican-Egyptian archaeological mission of the University of São Domingo discovered this 1,305-meter-long tunnel under the temple of Taposiris Magna Osiris in Alexandria. Excavation leader Dr. Kathleen Martins called the find an engineering marvel. According to her, the design of the tunnel is very similar to the design of the Evpalina tunnel in Greece, which was an aqueduct before it collapsed. Research has shown that this area of the Egyptian coast was hit by at least 23 earthquakes between 320 and 1303 AD, which caused the tunnel to collapse, archaeologists believe. Scientists have been exploring the ruins around Taposiris Magna for several years now. This tunnel may not lead to the long-lost tomb of Cleopatra, but who knows what else Taposiris Magna hides. Perhaps in the future, archaeological work will reveal this greatest mystery. Prison, bakery. In Pompeii, archaeologists have unearthed an ancient bakery where slaves worked in very harsh conditions. The place also served as a prison, where they, together with donkeys, ground grain for bread in a closed space with small and lattice windows. Workers added grain and controlled the process while the donkey pushed the millstone. Recesses were found in the floor to coordinate the movements of workers and animals. Historical records describe harsh conditions in mills and bakeries. Apuleius, a 2nd century writer, mentioned workers with painful injuries and chains on their legs. The conditions were also harsh for the donkeys, who were forced to walk in circles around the clock, causing them suffering. The bakery was found in the Regio Denine area of Pompeii, where a fresco with a flatbread and an electoral inscription had previously been found. This is a testament to the hard work of the ancient mill bakeries. The opening coincides with an upcoming exhibition in Pompeii exploring ordinary life in the shadow of Vesuvius. The exhibition highlights those who are often left out of the history books, including the slaves who made up the majority of the population and made significant contributions to the economy and culture of Roman civilization. Where have all the trees gone? I will tell you about the importance of protecting our nature using the example of one island. Easter Island, located in the Southeast Pacific Ocean and famous for its unique statues, appears to us in a completely different light today. This island was once covered with lush green forest, but with the arrival of man it lost its original appearance. The first inhabitants of the island were the Polynesians who settled here, despite the distance from the nearest continent, Chile. At one time, the population of the island reached 15,000 people, which with its area of 160 square kilometers amounted to 94 people per square kilometer. The main environmental disaster for the island was the deforestation of the unique palm trees Pascalococos disperta. Gradually, settlers destroyed the forest to make way for agriculture and canoe building. With deforestation, soil erosion began, which led to its impoverishment and degradation, completely depriving the island of fertility. After deforestation, the soil left in place became fragile and vulnerable to tropical rainfall, losing nutrients. This resulted in Easter Island losing most of its endemic species, with the exception of the sedge Serpis californicus. Today we have before us an example of how a careless attitude towards nature can lead to irreversible consequences. However, work on reforestation has already begun on Easter Island, which gives hope for its revival. Ancient Jewish curses. In ancient times, on Mount Ebal in Israel, archaeologist Adam Zertel discovered a lead tablet dating back to the mid-13th century BC. Recently, an international team of scientists, including Czech specialists, revealed the mystery of this tablet using X-ray tomography. Daniel Vavrik, a participant in the study, said the text was written on a lead sheet, which was then folded to hide the contents. The size of the plate is extremely small, only 2 centimeters in length and width. Previously, similar finds were opened mechanically, but this led to their damage. The new method made it possible to decipher the text without harming the artifact. Researchers have determined that the hidden text is written in Proto-Hebrew and dates back to approximately 1400 to 1200 BC, making it the oldest known text in this language. The text contained ancient curses. One of them read, "You are cursed by the god YWH, Yahweh." This discovery is of great value for history and archaeology, proving the deep roots of written culture in this region. Medusa Gorgon. In the British town of Knaresborough on the banks of the River Nid, there is a unique cave called Mother Shipton, where objects turn into stone. According to legend, it was here in 1488 that the famous soothsayer Mother Shipton was born, who predicted many events, including the Great Fire of London. Initially, the waterfall in the cave was famous for its healing properties, but over time, local residents discovered that objects that fell under its water turned to stone. This attracted public attention, and the cave became Britain's first paid attraction. Among the exhibits in the cave, you can see many fossilized objects, including men's top hats and hats from the 19th century, teapots, teddy bears, and even a bicycle. The secret of this phenomenon lies in the high content of minerals in the cave water, which contribute to the petrification of objects. Thus, Mother Shipton's Cave is evidence of an interesting natural phenomenon and attracts tourists with its history and amazing exhibits, each of which contains part of the magic and mysticism of the past.
Ball of yarn. 3 balls of yarn dating back 3,000 years have been found during excavations at an ancient Bronze Age site in England known as Britain's Pompeii. They were discovered in underground houses built in swampy areas. One of the balls was charred, raising questions about how it could have survived the fire without being damaged. The composition of the yarn has not yet been established due to the fragility of the artifacts. The lack of information about the composition of yarn causes controversy among scientists, especially when it comes to materials such as wool or plant fibers. It is assumed that the balls found could have been made from flax or nettle. All this suggests that the history of knitting and the use of textile materials in ancient times remains poorly understood and full of mysteries. Archaeologists are still trying to determine the purpose of these ancient textiles, many of which may have been lost or damaged in the fire that destroyed the settlement. This makes the task of reconstructing historical context even more difficult. Jade cicada. Here is a jade cicada created during the Western Zhou dynasty. This artifact is not just a decoration, it had a deep symbolic meaning. In Chinese culture, the cicada was considered a symbol of rebirth and immortality, and jade was a stone of eternity. Such a figurine could be placed in the mouth of the deceased before burial, believing that it would help the soul pass into the afterlife and be reborn. Traces of red paint found on the artifact are also important. Red symbolized protection and good luck. The finest carving demonstrates the high level of skill of ancient Chinese artisans. Note the eyes, folded paws, and patterns that give the figurine an almost mystical look. Such objects were part of rituals and reflected the religious beliefs of people of that era. Canteen of ancient Sumerians. On the territory of Iraq, in the ancient city of Lagash, archaeologists have found the remains of an ancient public dining room. And more than 5,000 years ago, there was a full-fledged indoor building where chefs prepared a large amount of food, and local workers or ordinary residents came here to eat. Maybe it was even free for them. The researchers found something similar to a clay refrigerator, benches, an oven, and the remains of dishes, where food was even preserved. Finding the tavern is actually a big discovery. This tells us that there was a middle class of people in this region. In ancient Lagash, in addition to the elite and slaves, there were ordinary hard workers who could come to the tavern after a working day and drink beer with a piece of meat or fish. The area of the city of Lagash is 450 hectares. It was one of the largest settlements in southern Iraq in the 3rd millennium BC. In addition to the dining room, archaeologists found a pottery shop with 6 ceramic kilns, a residential building that had a kitchen and a bath, and what looked like a shop. Tomb of Tutankhamun. Discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, the tomb of Tutankhamun surprised the entire planet with its luxurious artifacts and complex ritual architecture. This discovery changed the whole of archaeology and became part of the national identity of Egypt. What is so special about Tutankhamun, a young king who ruled for less than 10 years? The main thing is the circumstances of its discovery. His tomb was hidden under 150,000 tons of rocks in a rocky gorge called the Valley of the Kings. Many thought that all the tombs there had already been found and devastated, and Tutankhamun himself was a little-known pharaoh. But one inconspicuous place was a real surprise. It was there that the tomb of Tutankhamun was found. In the first room that archaeologists discovered, valuable items were placed somehow, as if after urgent restoration. But even such a chaotic arrangement could not overshadow their splendor. "Amazing!" exclaimed the archaeologist, looking there for the first time. Strange animals, statues, and gold. There is a golden sparkle everywhere. Since its discovery, Tutankhamun has become a symbol of Egypt. Now, more than 5,000 treasures from his tomb are the main display of the new Great Egyptian Museum. And although his reign was short, he became famous throughout the world thanks to the amazing and complete safety of his tomb. Even before the opening of the tomb, a seemingly unremarkable incident occurred to Carter. The thing is that during the excavations, Carter was accompanied by a pet, a small canary. And then one day a cobra climbed into the dwelling of a scientist and ate a bird. The archaeologist himself did not attach any importance to this, but his servants, who consisted of local residents, took this as a sign of impending disaster. The cobra is one of the symbols of the Egyptian pharaohs. The deepest ancient tunnel. In China, they want to reach Cretaceous rocks that are 140 million years old. The task is ambitious. It is planned to drill through 10 layers of earth and reach a depth of 11,000 meters, which will become a national record. Work started in May of this year. While Russia wants to resume work on the Kola super deep well, China is already drilling in full swing. Let me remind you that the Soviet Kola well project, although it was not completed, made important scientific discoveries and planned to drill the earth to a depth of more than 15,000 meters. Work on the Kola Peninsula began in 1970 and continued for 2 decades. At a depth of 7 kilometers, the team had to face difficulties. Layered rocks got stuck in the equipment. Despite this, the final depth of 12,226 meters was achieved, but the project had to be closed in 1990 due to an unknown explosion. Now, China is looking to further explore the Earth's interior and plans to use its new borehole to study earthquakes and predict their occurrence. The project also aims to gain a deeper understanding of the internal structure of the Earth and its evolution. This opens up new opportunities for the development of technologies and solutions applicable in different industries. Let's hope that China, having modern technologies, will be able to find something interesting for the world of archaeology. Found the place where the Book of Deer was written. Archaeologists in Scotland have discovered a long-lost monastery that is about 1,000 years old. The site appears to be associated with the creation of the Book of Deer, one of the oldest surviving copies of Gaelic writing. The Book of Deer is a unique 10th century collection of gospel texts containing records in Latin, Old Irish, and Gaelic, now housed in the Cambridge University Library. It contains the Gospel of John, fragments of other Gospels, as well as historically significant records written in Gaelic. The site where the monastery once stood is located in Aberdeenshire, near the village of Mintlow. Archaeologists suggest that it was here that the unique records of the Book of Deer were created, and excavations in 2022 confirm this assumption. The excavation site uncovered post holes dating from the same period as the Gaelic entries in the book. In addition, finds include medieval pottery, glass shards, personal items, and game boards indicating the existence of a monastery complex here. Inscription from the necropolis of Sheikh Abdel Qurna. Sheikh Abdel Qurna, an ancient necropolis in Luxor, Egypt, is famous for its tombs with inscriptions intended to deter robbers. The National Museum of Scotland houses a unique slab with one of these texts. It says, "Pass by and don't touch even the slightest stone here. If you come across this stone, do not step over it. Know that the gods who rest in the mountains are gaining strength every day, despite the fact that their stones are carried away." Written in hieratic script, this warning states that removing even one stone from the tomb will anger the gods and spirits of the departed. However, given that the slab was moved to Scotland without apparent consequences, it seems that the ancient warning may not be taken seriously. Ancient tomb. Hidden in the shadow of the blue doors of an ancient Ming Dynasty tomb in China was a mystery for centuries. Having opened the gates, archaeologists encountered an extraordinary luxurious tomb from 400 years ago. The tomb, found during preparations for the construction of a highway in Shaanxi province, is impressive in its preservation and sophistication of execution. Researchers have confirmed that the tomb, dating back to the Ming era, contained nobles. 2 luxurious wooden coffins with exquisite patterns and porcelain vessels indicate the high status of the deceased. Epitaphs hint at noble origins, and magnificently decorated coffers indicate a connection with the royal court. The finds include furniture, writing instruments, and artistic objects, highlighting the sophisticated lifestyle of the elite of the time. Despite many hypotheses, the exact reasons for the opulence and purpose of the tomb remain unknown, adding mystery to the history of the Ming Dynasty, a period of flourishing culture, art, and science in China. Gold bead over 1,600 years old. And again, excavations in Jerusalem. A gold bead made by a skilled jeweler over 1,600 years ago was discovered in the Emek Tzurim National Park. The find was discovered by 18-year-old Hillel Fademan, who is in the National Service Park. Archaeologists believe that the bead was part of a bracelet or necklace. The soil was taken from a luxurious building that stood on the pilgrimage road. Judging by the finds made here and shards of overseas ceramics, it can be concluded that a very wealthy family lived here. The value of this find is not only in the material of manufacture, but also in the skill of the ancient jeweler. The technology for the production of such jewelry appeared in Mesopotamia in the 3rd millennium BC. Researchers suggest that the age of the bead may be much older than 1600 years. The jeweler needed great skill in working with the material in order to carefully connect small balls to each other and not flatten them. To do this, it is important to maintain the correct temperature. Similar jewelry has already been found in Jerusalem, but they were made of silver.
Skeleton with intact brain. Imagine a giant 45-hectare mound that looks like a heart in aerial photographs. It is called the Heart of Western Anatolia for a reason. Now comes the fun part. For the first time in the history of Turkish archaeology, scientists have discovered well-preserved skin remains. And what else? Remains of the brain. Imagine the remains of a brain that is already 3,700 years old. Finds of such antiquity are something incredible. They were a young guy, 15, 18 years old, and a middle-aged man. Apparently, their house was set on fire during the Bronze Age, and they did not have time to get out. It's scary to imagine, but it was thanks to this fire that their remains were so well preserved. This amazing mound was the real capital of its region in ancient times, but around 1700 BC it was completely destroyed by attack. And now comes the main question: how is this possible? How could remains of brain and skin survive after such a long time? Thanks to extremely high fire temperatures. This is truly a unique and rare find. Helmets with runes. The origin of the runic alphabet still remains a mystery to scientists seeking to establish the time of its appearance. Therefore, every archaeological find with a runic inscription is subject to careful study. When Nagao helmets with clear runic inscriptions were discovered in 1812, it raised many questions and theories regarding their meaning. Is it possible that the Nagao helmets bear Germanic runes dating back to between 350 and 450 BC? Nagao helmets, found near the town and castle of Nagao in the Duchy of Styria, modern Slovenia, contain 26 bronze helmets probably offered as a ceremonial gift. One of the helmets, called Nagao B, bore a runic inscription in the northern Etruscan alphabet. This discovery has given rise to many theories as to what language the inscription is written in and what it means. Recent research by Tom Markey suggests that the inscription can be translated as Haragast priest. This could mean the owner of the helmet or the one who offered it as a sacrifice. Nagao A's helmet bears 4 further inscriptions, which Markey suggests are in Celtic. The helmets are now kept in various museums throughout Europe, including the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna and the Archaeological Museum in Zagreb.
Unusual lead coffin. In northern Britain, archaeologists have discovered the skeleton of a late Roman aristocrat in a lead coffin, as well as the remains of more than 60 men, women, and children who lived in the region more than 1,000 years ago. The discovery could shed light on one of the key periods in British history, as researchers found representatives from both late Roman and early Saxon times with different burial customs. The discovery was made in Leeds at a site discovered last year near Garforth. The location of the cemetery is kept secret to protect against looters. The cemetery was discovered last spring near the site where late Roman stone buildings and structures in the Anglo-Saxon style had previously been found. Among the finds in the cemetery were burials containing individual objects such as knives and pottery, indicating early Christian beliefs and Saxon burial customs. Chemical tests can reveal details about the origins and diet of those buried. Once the analyses are completed, the lead coffin is planned to be displayed at Leeds Museum as part of an exhibition on burial customs around the world. The oldest parcel has found its addressee. In 1913, the 20-year-old son of a Berlin baker decided to test how far a bottle thrown into the Baltic Sea could float. Inside, he placed 2 stamps and a postcard with a request to return it if found. 100 years later, in 2014, Conrad Fischer from Kiel found this bottle while fishing. Inside were stamps and a worn postcard from Richard Plotz. After investigation, it was possible to contact Plotz's granddaughter, Angela Erdmann, for whom this message became an important family artifact. This bottle became part of the exhibition at the Hamburg Museum. The chances that it would survive at sea seemed slim, but a miracle happened. The history of bottle mail goes back to antiquity. According to legend, the Greek philosopher Theophrastus in 310 BC used it to prove the connection between the Atlantic and Mediterranean seas. In Britain until the 18th century, it was considered a crime to break such bottles and read their contents. And what about you? Have you ever found a letter in a bottle or sent one yourself? Share in the comments below the video. Tomb of Hessi Ra. Mastaba Hessi Ra, located in Saqqara, became the final resting place for a high-ranking official from the times of the Old Kingdom of Egypt. This burial site, like many other Egyptian tombs, is decorated with hieroglyphic inscriptions telling the story of the life of Hessi Ra. But the peculiarity of these inscriptions is that after the biographical part, they turn into a short but powerful curse. If anyone enters here having committed unworthy acts or after intimacy with women, then he will be judged with me at the meeting of the great God. Despite the many years that have passed since the creation of this curse, we hope that it has not brought harm to any modern researcher or visitor to this ancient tomb.
Leap Castle. Leap Castle, located 3 kilometers from the city of Roscrea, Ireland, is considered the most sinister place in the country. Built around 1250, it became home to the bloodthirsty O'Carroll clan. Betrayals, murders, and tortures took place here, and numerous ghosts still roam its halls. The history of the castle began with a tragedy. 2 brothers from the O'Bannon clan argued for power and decided to jump off a cliff to determine the winner. The survivor became the leader of the clan, and the castle was named Bannon's Leap. Later, the fortress was captured by the O'Carrolls, notorious for their cruelty. In 1532, during Mass, one of the O'Carrolls killed his brother, a priest, right at the altar. Since then, his ghost wanders through the bloody chapel, from the windows of which light sometimes comes. In 1922, workers found an underground pit in the castle with the remains of 150 people. In the Middle Ages, prisoners were thrown here and simply forgotten. Some of the ghosts of the castle are friendly. For example, Emily is a girl who died after falling from the fortress wall. Eyewitnesses say that they see her fall but disappear right before the ground. However, there is a much more sinister entity, the Elemental, an ancient spirit that was possibly summoned by the Druids. It appears rarely, but is considered the most dangerous inhabitant of the castle. Today, the castle has been partially restored, but its dark history is alive. Tours are held here, and many guests leave Leap with the feeling that someone was watching them. Would you like to visit a haunted castle? Could you spend at least one night in the castle alone? Write in the comments under the video and don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Bye everyone.